zoology. Okay, so we are here for our third set of notes, or fourth set of notes for our third phylum. This phylum is Platyhelminthes. Just like usual, go ahead and put these notes into your virtual notebook. You can type them out, you can write them out, whatever way is more comfortable for you. Just make sure they get onto those slides. Phylum, this is Phylum Platyhelminthes. This word right here, platy means flat. Not like that. Erase that. That's not how you spell flat. Flat. If you think of like platypus are flat. They have a flat bill and a flat tail. So Platyhelminthes is similar to that in that regard. Wow, I have to erase it every time. That's good to know. Good to know. All right, so their history. There are around 20,000 different species of Platyhelminthes. They all kind of have about the same look. They belong to 3 different classes, but different species within those classes. They're invertebrates, which means they do not have a backbone or spinal column. And they are either free living, which means they either live out in the ocean, in ponds, in fresh water, or they're parasitic, living inside a host. And that's always fun. We have finally got to the point in our phylums in which we have an organism that has organs. Yay! We went from no organs and no tissue to phylum Cnidaria finally had tissue. And now we've built up from tissue, now we're in organs. The 2 types that we're going to talk about, the 2 organs, are, well, there's more than 2 organs, but these main ones. So flame cells are what they use to get rid of urine. They don't call it urine, it's called urea, which is different. But it has this like spinning coil inside which shoots water out, or excretions out, like water. So it's very cool. They use pressure to shoot out that water. So it's really fun, interesting, and entertaining. Eye spots, these are only in free living organisms. The ones that are living inside hosts don't need eye spots because they can't detect it because they're inside a body. So it doesn't matter. The ganglia, it's like a nervous system, but not quite there yet. We haven't gotten super complex. We're not complex enough for that. So simple to that, but not really. The pharynx is like a sucking straw that's used to get food, so it's its mouth, but it's also the anus. So yay for that. Still only one opening, no anus yet. It does have a digestion through its intestines, but still no anus, out through the same hole it came in. Now I remember that I need to erase before I move on. All right, moving on. Its body plan. So this is really important because now we're starting to get into more complex organisms that have a more complex body plan. From here on out, bilateral symmetry is going to be one of the main ones for us that we'll talk about. So bi means 2. The prefix bi means 2. So if I cut this person in half, which that's not very good in half, but that's okay. Both sides look fairly similar. So if I cut it into 2 parts, both sides should be the same. We wouldn't cut this organism this direction because it wouldn't be the same on both sides. So bilateral symmetry is always going to divide in half lengthwise usually. Cephalization, that's another really important one. So cephal means head, and that will come into play later on when we talk about cephalopods. But cephal means head, ization just means to have. So cephalization means that it has a defined head region. So you can look at the organism and say, that is the head. That is the front and that's going to be a big part in our phyla from here on out, is that cephalization. Another large part of our phylums that we're going to talk about is our layers. So we had 2 cell layers when we talked about cnidarians, but now we're moving into more complex organisms, and those complex organisms are going to have 3 cell layers. We won't get any more than 3, so we've learned all 3 now. The first cell layer, the ectoderm, we learned was the skin in cnidarians, and the endoderm was the gut. And that will not change. It will still always be the skin and the gut. Now we've added this 3rd cell layer called the mesoderm, and the mesoderm is going to be the muscle layer. So that creates all of the muscles that are within our bodies. Yes, if you think about like me moving my arms, that requires my muscles. But also if I think about when I put food into my mouth and then that moves into my stomach, and then from my stomach into my intestines, and then from my intestines out of my body, all of that has to be done with muscles. So muscle is going to move our skin and the outside of our bodies, but also the things that are inside our bodies as well. So really remembering that that is important. The final thing when we're talking about these 3 cell layers is this word right here, acoelomate. So acoelomate. Acoelomates mean that there's no gap in between the muscle and the endoderm. There's no gaps. It's just all filled, which you can see by this picture. It's all filled. We'll get into reasons as why that starts to be more complex, but for right now, just know that acoelomates are platyhelminthes. All right, now I gotta erase this whole thing one more time. All right. So how do platyhelminthes? So we're gonna talk about how they move, how they eat, and how they reproduce, which is the main motive for life, or the main parts of life. When we're talking about moving, they use cilia, which are little hairs on the outside of their body to move through water, but they can also use their muscle cells to glide through water. To eat, if they're free living, so they live in the ocean or live in some ponds, they are scavengers or carnivores. They're going to eat little, not microorganisms, but small organisms like larvae or different planktons. They're going to eat those guys up, or just scavenge for different leftover meat chunks and different chunks inside the oceans. If they're parasitic, they are going to be feasting on blood tissues and just leftover cells inside the body to really make what they need. And our last, how do they reproduce? So they are going to reproduce 2 ways. First way is asexually. They are going to use fission, so they can literally split apart and form identical copies of themselves. But, you know, in order to maintain diversity and genetic diversity inside the organisms, they do have to do sexual reproduction. And this can get hard if you're a little worm inside a big ocean trying to find a mate. So most of our platyhelminthes, and by most I mean all of our platyhelminthes are going to be hermaphroditic, which means that they will have both male and female sex organs inside their body. They'll have sperm and eggs inside their bodies. And this helps in the sense of when they're searching for mates in the big vast ocean, they don't have to specifically find a female or find a male. They can just find another worm. And because each of them have male and female, it makes it a lot easier to find a mate that way. We're gonna watch a video on mating in a second. Okay, so there are 3 platyhelminthe classes that we're gonna be talking about. You will have to be able to distinguish between the 3 classes by hearing descriptions of them or seeing pictures of them. So make sure that you're able to do that. We are going to be labeling diagrams and life cycles on Thursday, so stay tuned. The first class is class Turbellaria. Turbellaria. If you notice, the marine worm, which is this worm right here, and the planaria is that worm right there. The marine worm has that ribbon-like structure. That is its muscle cell that's going to undulate like this to get through the water to swim in the ocean. This one lives in salt water. This one lives in fresh water. And looking at our planaria, you could actually see the eye spots right here and here. Those are the things that detect light and help it move about its environment. The saltwater planaria, or the saltwater flatworm, has one too, but you can't see them on this one. So I will go ahead and erase this. Next is going to be our lovely video, which is one of my favorite things to show each year. So excited. I think I'm going to have to just click the links up. Okay, so watch them. Our second class is class Trematode. They are parasitic. They are commonly known as flukes. This one, the big red one, is a liver fluke. The green one is a picture, a very close-up picture of a liver fluke's mouth. They have two hosts in their life, their primary host and their intermediate host. The primary host is where sexual reproduction happens, and their intermediate host is where asexual reproduction happens. Keep popping myself up. Asexual reproduction. If we think about like the life cycle that we're going to get for our flukes on Thursday, is the liver fluke, and their primary host is cows. Their intermediate host are snails. So what happens is the snails will leave behind some flukes on grass. The cows will eat the grass. The cow's digestive system is where these flukes live. They'll reproduce. The cow will poop out eggs. The eggs will get ingested by the snails. Then the flukes will do asexual reproduction by making like little copies of themselves inside the snails. And then they leave the snail. That goes back onto the grass. It goes back into the cow. It's a whole thing, whole life cycle. They do have two suckers. So there's a sucker here and a sucker here. This one is called the oral sucker. That's how it eats. And then this one is called the ventral sucker. That's how it stays attached to its host. It like latches on and then starts to eat. Again, very good at what it does. Our last class. It's my favorite class of Platyhelminthes. This is class Cestoda. Class Cestoda is the tapeworm. And in a second, you'll find out why they are the best of the West. They're so cool. They live inside intestines, and each species is specific to the organism that it lives in. So there is bovine tapeworms, there are pig tapeworms, there are human tapeworms, and they are specific to their organism, which is very interesting, highly interesting to have that much specificity. They have two special body parts. The first body part is this top part, that is the scolex. The scolex has two, it's the head, has two different ways that it stays attached to the organism's intestines. And it's very good at it. The first are these hooks, which literally hook into the side of the intestines or hook onto, and these are suckers. So not only does it hook in, but it also latches on with its suction in order to stay attached. Its whole job is to stay attached, to get the nutrients that are running through your intestines, and to reproduce, which is in the proglottids. So every single section, I hope you can tell, each of these are like sectioned off, like all down its body. And remember, like tapeworms can be like 6 feet long. They can be huge. Each of these proglotted sections are actually reproductive organs and are the egg sacs to grow a new tapeworm. So think about a 6 foot long tapeworm. 3 inches of that is the head. The rest of it is baby tapeworm eggs. What happens is each of these, the closer it is to the head, the least mature it is, and the further away it gets, the more mature it is. And each one of these can break off and fall off into the feces, which can then infect another organism. That's why they're so good at what they do. They literally dedicate 90% of their body to making more. It's insane. They're just amazing. I love them. Would I want one? No. Are they really cool? Yes. All right. Then finally, this is the end. I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Thank you guys for sticking with me. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Watch the video again if you need to. Jot down your notes. And yeah, I'll put those videos in the directions with the notes. And I hope that you guys enjoy them as much as I did. Bye, guys.